Welcome to the February 7th meeting of Lake Forest City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Honorable James Cowhey.
Here.
Alderman Grumhaus.
Here.
Alderman Novit.
Here.
Alderman Woodman.
Here.
Alderman Moore absent. Alderman Morsch.
Here.
Alderman Schoenhyder.
Here.
Alderman Looby.
Here.
Alderman Palmer.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent. Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Bertie. Will you please join me in a pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business this evening is reports of city officers, the first being comments by mayor. I do have one item of business to discuss with you this evening. That is an approval of the Housing Trust Board appointments. As you know, this came before us for final approval at our last council meeting. I was asked by Alderman Schoenhyder if I could defer that because of his absence of that meeting, which I did. It's back on the agenda this evening. And just a few comments I'd like to make before we move forward on that. But this obviously has been something I've been working on for a while. As the public may know, we only have 2 members of this board as of now, those being Michael Burns, a former alderman, and the current alderman, Tom Morsch. The council did feel it's important that we have more representation on that board and that we can get some of the individuals and institutions that we believe will help us look at this opportunity in the Lake Forest community to see what we can do for affordable housing and different types of housing. Therefore, the names that we've come forward represent those institutions and those areas that we believe can help us, again, in that same regard. I know that you'll look at, there are 2 individuals here that are not current residents, but they do represent pretty much stakeholders in the community that we believe will help us. One being Steve Madden, who is with Lake Forest Bank. He is not a current resident of the community, although Lake Forest Bank certainly has been a very committed institution for our community for many, many years and always at the forefront of helping our community. And we did feel it was important to have a representative from the bank. The president of the bank appointed Steve Madden as that representative, so that is why Steve is on that list. The other one being a non-resident is Matt Koshman, who is with Lake Forest Hospital. We did feel it's very important to have the hospital at the table as we speak about housing in the future. Matt, again, is not a resident of the community, but appointed by the president of Northwestern Hospital. And again, we feel it's important to have their representation on this committee. So the others, I think, are certainly known to the community. We're certainly thankful for the representative from Lake Forest College, Leslie Chapman, who was not only a long-term employee of the college, but also a member of the 4th Ward. And we have Tom Tropp, who is the Senior Cottages, who's both former alderman and also served many years with the Senior Cottages Commission. The other member being Jim Buzzard, who is the Senior Resource Commission, also a 4th Ward resident. Now, we tried very hard to get all of the wards represented. Again, it was not easy to try to get that mix of every single ward. We do not have a representative from the 1st Ward. That was not by any design, and certainly did not try to leave the 1st Ward out. It was simply trying to fill all these spots and trying to get the right people in the right places. But there is certainly an opportunity, and as we go forward with these recommendations, as you'll notice, there are 1- and 2-year term appointments. That the next round, this will certainly go to the caucus. We have spoken to the caucus as we started this process. The caucus was not in the position to fill all of these in such a, let's put it, somewhat shorter term period, but they certainly will be going forward in the future. I think once the commission gets going and figures out a little bit more of its direction, they'll have the opportunity to alter, change, and alter and change for the good if it so sees fit. Again, I think it's important that this commission and this board is known as an advisory to the city council. It's the city council that takes the final and ultimate decision-making in this process. So these are individuals that we know do not have an agenda. They come to the table as a member or members of the community in which they work or live, and that we expect them to do that in a professional manner. If there should be any conflicts, we certainly would expect that they would present them forward. We will keep them certainly close tab on such, and that they will act in a professional manner and provide us the opportunities to, again, further the opportunities for different types of housing within Lake Forest. With that, I open it up for any other discussion or a motion for approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Nope. Motion carries. That is the remainder of my comments. The next item on the agenda is comments by City Manager. Bob?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This evening, I've asked two very tired individuals to come before you and brief the council on the city's snow removal work that's taken place over, well, I guess, starting last Tuesday night, and sort of where we sit right now with respect to our salt storage and plans in case we get any more storms between now and the end of the snow season. So with us this evening is our Public Works Superintendent Ken Leone and his trusty Assistant Public Works Superintendent Michael Thomas.
Thank you, Bob. Members of City Council, greetings. I'd like to first of all recognize my fellow Public Works and Parks Forestry employees. I think they did an extraordinary job in this 20-inch blizzard that we just experienced. Because of the magnitude of the storm, we went to 12-hour shifts starting on Tuesday morning, ran them through Saturday evening. The purpose being to keep people fresh and to put the best foot forward to serve the residents. Our employees had sleep patterns disrupted. They didn't get around to cleaning up their driveways till after the storm was over. Some of them couldn't even get home. They had to sleep at the municipal services building. Some slept in their own personal trucks to get rest between shifts. It was quite an adventure for them. They did a great job for us. To get more people into the snow response, we also canceled the Thursday and Friday garbage and recycling collections. As you know, this was broadcast through a reverse 911 call and also was put out on the city website. But this allowed us to use those 9 full-time and 3 seasonal employees in the snow plan throughout the week. And with the presentation that I have here, I'll run through these things fairly quickly. Salt is always a topic of interest. We started the year with 1,000 tons. We purchased 3,000 during the year under our contract that you approved last April. So far, we've used, this is actually through Sunday, February 6, 2,388 tons, 1,612 remain. So we think we're in good shape for the rest of the year. Don't want to speak too soon, but normally in February, March, and April, 3 months, we use less than 1,000 tons. That's our 17-year average. So if we have a historic last 3 months, we should be in good shape for the rest of the winter. Overtime, we exceeded our budget. The $137,000 figure is the combined Public Works, Parks, Forestry, snow overtime budget. We used $107,000 plus through January 30th, and this last storm we used almost $59,000. That put us at $29,000 over budget, and as you know, we had a 3-inch snowfall on Sunday, cost us another $6,454 in overtime. So currently, we are $36,000 over budget in overtime. The next pages that you have in front of you, we don't need to go through, but this just details some of the things we did day by day throughout the storm. And you'll see some of these items recur from day to day because they're impossible to complete them very quickly with a 20-inch storm. But we have everything going from snow hauling, which we did with ourselves and with contractors, to blowing snow back out of cul-de-sacs to help people get out of their driveways essentially and to get around the cul-de-sacs. We had to, of course, do all the train stations, the city facilities. We did this with plows, blowers, anything and everything we had. And this activities continued right on through Saturday at 5 p.m. when the 12-hour shifts ended. And this shows the estimated 1,100 plus hours of overtime for the event, plus all of the straight time, and the overtime costing almost $59,000. And throughout the week's activities, we tried to stick with our established priorities that we presented to the Public Works Committee last September, and that was doing street plowing first, going to parking lots and train stations second, sidewalks, CBD, residential intersections third, and bridge decks fourth, park facilities fifth, and our normal priority is to do hauling from downtown last, but this year we had to do the hauling earlier in the process simply because there was so much snow in the CBD and no place to park, no place to put any more snow. We had to start hauling earlier in the process. A few more facts and figures from the storm. We had a contractor loading and hauling with semis at a cost of $8,600. We plowed or salted over 6,200 miles of roads, used over 6,000 gallons of diesel fuel. We have 65 mailboxes to repair. We hauled the equivalent of 2,100 5-yard dump truck loads of snow from the CBD and stored it up at the old Municipal Services Building. If you go up there, you'll see mounds of snow. 85% of the Knaus gravel lot is covered with snow. So we're very thankful to have that site this winter available to us. We had 3 inches of snow on Sunday. That cost us another 142 hours of overtime. We used 110 tons of salt on Sunday, and that's included in the previous totals. But there's still more to do. We're not done yet, and here are a few of the things. We begin hauling from alleys tomorrow. Pothole patching started today on some of the main roads. We have ongoing intersection and corner pushbacks. We're widening streets. This has been going on for some time with the blower. And we're going to do some benching, which is a wing plow mounted on one of our loaders and a wing plow mounted on one of our dual axle trucks. And the wing plow hangs out over the side of the truck, goes up over the curb, pushes the mounted snow back to make room for more snow from the smaller plows that will push it up the next time it snows. We have sidewalk plowing to finish. We did the quarter-mile radiuses around the schools on Saturday, and we're still working through the neighborhoods now. We have snow to haul from a few locations. We only lost 4 trees in the whole storm. We have bike path plowing to finish and park facilities to finish. For this week, starting tomorrow morning at 5, we're going to go to 12-hour shifts of 4 people each, plus a mechanic and a mechanic's helper at night to do the benching and the blowing to widen the roads that we mentioned earlier. The projected overtime cost of this operation will be a little over $7,000. And it's important to widen out the roads, even in the quiet residential neighborhoods, not only for traffic at this point, but as the snow begins to melt, and it's supposed to warm up in about a week, a little less than a week. As the snow melts, the catch basins need to be exposed so the water will have someplace to go. All the other work that we still have to do will be done on straight time. We have an opportunity, possibly, to get federal funds to reimburse us for some of these expenses. The Lake County Board declared a disaster in Lake County. The governor today declared a disaster in the entire state of Illinois. And the governor may or may not, but he may request federal disaster declaration. If he does so, and if we meet certain threshold levels of costs, and those thresholds have to be met within the county and within the state. The threshold for Lake County is about $2.5 million worth of snow-related expenses. For the state as a whole, $16 million. If we meet those thresholds, we can apply for federal funds if the governor so decides. And if that be the case, we can be reimbursed for overtime and vehicle costs that would, during any 48-hour period of the storm. So our worst 48 hours is what we would take. And this data is due on Friday at noon, so now that we've got the storm under control, that's our work starting tomorrow morning. Have you any questions or comments?
Just a few comments. First, this is one of the first storms that I've been through since I've been an alderman where I've gotten absolutely no calls complaining from anyone in the ward. And it's kind of a tribute to the job that was done. Going to Chicago and some of the neighboring communities, the neighborhoods are complete nightmares and remain that way. The appreciation for how quickly the streets were cleared and how drivable they are is just incredible. The only comment I got from anyone, and it was a former alderman, so you know they're complainers, are on the north side of Westminster by the railroad tracks. He did suggest, I think the north side wasn't plowed as far as the sidewalk goes, and it's probably a great idea if some priority could be given to that just to keep people off the street and commuters. But I don't know how much better you could get. I just thought it was a fantastic effort. Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to say, Ken, to you and Michael and Tom Nance and all the Public Works Department, thank you very much for all the hard work you put in. Obviously, a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of time by you and a lot of other individuals, but you did a fantastic job. The only comment I'd make is the same thing as the sidewalks. I know that's a second priority. I know you're working on them. 'Cause I know my daughter ran out to get the bus and was trying to get down the street, the same thing, and said, "When are you going to get it done, Dad?" And I said, "Wait a minute. When the streets are open, we'll get there." So we know we're going to get it done, but I do appreciate all the hard work you put in. And the other thing, I want to say a happy birthday to Michael Thomas this evening, and I know you want to get out of here because this is where you want to be tonight, celebrating with the council and staff. So hurry up and finish your report and get on home. So thanks again.
Thank you.
That completes my report for this evening.
Thank you, Bob. Our next item on the agenda this evening is council committee reports, first being Finance Committee, Alderman Grumhaus.
Nothing to report.
Second being Housing Trust, Alderman Morsch.
Nothing to report. Thank you for the appointments that were made today. Help very much.
Very good. The third being the Laurel and Western Avenue Redevelopment Committee. That's also Alderman Morsch.
Not much to report. We are going to try and schedule a meeting. We do have an update from our environmental consultant. I have not heard the update, but we're going to call a meeting so that we can get the update, and then we'll report back to
What do you mean? I hear there's a 9-story snow fort on that property.
Yeah, I think we bored before the snow. The only thing I can say about Laurel and Western is the snow won't be there later in the year.
We're putting in a ski lift for summer.
It might
For
be.
those of you that
It's
like
getting-
that sledding hill that we built,
It's a multiple-use property at this point.
people wanted a park, so we put a snow hill in it. No, that's it.
Our next,
Mount Morsch.
Thank you.
there you go. Our next item is
report.
Legal Committee, no report. Senior Resource Commission.
Senior Resource, really nothing. Our next meeting is next Monday, and Marla's firmly in command now and doing a great job.
Very good. The next item is the Public Works Committee, Alderman Looby.
We have a couple of things under the Public Works, but I'd like to just comment also on the snow removal. The guys did a great job out there. In fact, they were even smiling in the trucks as they continued down the street. And I only received one phone call on Wednesday night. It was a compliment on the city, and it was a complaint again on the county and Waukegan Road, et cetera. And he said, "I want to complain, but I understand it really is not the city, and thank you for the good job that you do." So I have to say also that as many complaints as there are about driveways being refilled in my neighborhood, I saw the guys on the trucks, they turned the plows out a little bit or whatever, and they really did a nice job on not pushing it right back into people's driveways and trying to do as best they could. So I can only compliment them on the fine job that was done. And personally, my street was wider than Waukegan Road, so that was something to see when I got off my street.
I would echo your comments. I mean, both about the quality of the snow removal we did, but how poorly the county did.
The county again.
And that something should be said to the county, that they need to get their act together, and they had unsafe roads. The roads were unsafe. I mean, I was driving on 137 on Saturday, and it was completely unsafe. We're paying a lot of tax dollars to the county, and they need to, the county or the state, whoever's responsible, they need to get a little bit more organized, and if they need some lessons, they can call our guys.
In driving through downtown Lake Forest on Wednesday and seeing it Saturday morning after the snow had been taken out, it was incredible the job that could be done in that short period of time. So, again, a great job. Downtown is great, and I know we're getting, a little bit of snow back, but everybody was talking about the great job that's been done there, so pass that along. And now we're going to hear about something for the spring, a little bit different, and Michael's going to talk about the painting of the city's water tower.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. This evening, staff is requesting City Council approval for the painting of our one and only water tower. We did this back in 1998. We estimated that the paint job would last approximately 10 years. It's lasted a little bit longer. We have an engineering firm that we work with out of Neenah, Wisconsin, that comes down on a biannual basis over the past 5 years to take a look at the paint job, analyze its thickness, how well it's adhering to the tank, and it has come time now to repaint the tank. When we were planning this, we were also talking to the Village of Lake Bluff because their elevated tank, again, they only have one water tower. They needed to have their tank painted as well, so we came up with the idea of trying to bid both projects together. As you see in the enclosed bid tabulation, we were hoping to see some savings, and actually we were, by the lowest bid contractor, Newman Painting. Both towns are going to save $3,600. Not a lot of money, but they'll save some money by going through this joint bid process. So this evening, we're asking for City Council approval to award the contract to Newman Painting Company. The painting companies are now beginning to line up all their work, obviously, for the spring, summer, and fall. And we wanted to get our bid spec, which is this nice thick book, out in the winter months to try and get the best price. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy.
Has Lake Bluff approved it yet, or?
Their meeting is next Monday. And in speaking with their village engineer, they're going to award it to Newman as well.
Should our approval then be contingent on Lake Bluff approving also, or?
Well, it's the lowest bid anyway.
It's the lowest bid,
Okay.
correct.
So I would think, and I'd like to make the motion to accept.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Woodman.
Aye.
Alderman Moore. Oops, sorry, absent. Alderman Morsch.
Yes.
Alderman Schoenhyder.
Aye.
Alderman Looby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
7 yeas, motion carries.
Hey, Mike, I have a question before you
Yes.
move on. When I see water towers, I think of old movies of New York, black and white, showing the tenements and so on and so forth. And here we have one of these things, as do a lot of communities. I know the purpose for which they exist, but are they actually used? Is the water pressure
Oh, sure.
really dependent upon
Just
them?
some basic background. The water tower is probably one of the most important pieces of infrastructure that we have in the city, bar none. We store water down at the water plant, 1.5 million gallons, right across from West Campus at the booster station. We've got 2.5 million gallons, and then the elevated tank is 1.5 million gallons. So water leaves the plant, goes into the booster station or the elevated tank, but the elevated tank is one of the largest pieces, equipment that we have that maintains the water pressure. So not only the pumps down at the water plant are assisting with that pressure, but you've got 1.5 million gallons of water sitting up in the air that is pushing down on your water mains. So the water is going in and out constantly. We'll go through that tank every day, and especially in weather coming up this week, we've got to keep that water moving so it doesn't freeze. We've never had it turn into an ice cube, and we don't have plans to. So it's a very important piece.
Just one other, if you could comment on how they pick the color, because that's always what people ask. Sky blue, baby blue.
Yeah, sky blue. Many tanks around different municipalities going with elaborate designs, or they have the name of the municipality painted.
Or basketball.
We've been very conservative in our approach, in that it's sky blue, Tanemic paint, which is an excellent paint. Lake Bluff will be using the same color, so it's something just to match the sky, try to hide it, blend it. One thing that you will notice that we do not do, we do not wash the tank on a regular basis, and we do that purposely. If we wash it, we begin to chip the paint, and we don't want that to happen. One of the reasons this paint job has lasted so long, even though we get some of the dirt from the composting operation on the lower part of the bowl, if we were to go up there with power washers, we begin to chip the tank, and we'd be painting it more frequently. So that question we're often asked. So.
And no ads for Lake Forest Flowers, please. No.
Forget me not, believe me. And the second item tonight is a request for the city council to waive the bidding process to purchase the replacement water plant membrane filters. I think we've learned about the membranes many, many times over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, last year we brought a sample module up for you. This is an annual purchase. Both the water tower and the membranes are budgeted for FY 2012. In the chart in the packet, I had a typo. It's listed as FY 11. They both are actually FY 12. So very similar to the water tower, we're simply trying to plan ahead. These modules are built over in Toulouse, France. They will be shipped to Richmond, Virginia, and then trucked to our plant in Lake Forest. By receiving your approval this evening, we should have the modules by the end of May, right before our heavy pumping season. And as we've discussed many times, this is simply replacement of some of the modules that have gone bad. Be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Woodman.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Schoenhyder.
Aye.
Alderman Looby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
7 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Michael, can I ask you one
Thank you.
question on that? I did notice the packaging and delivery costs went through the roof on this.
Yeah.
Any explanation for that?
When we went ahead and called, we called in the fall for a price for budget purposes for the November 15th budget meeting. And then before we bring it to you now, we asked for a refined price. The response was simply the freight, the air freight. I guess there's some types of investigations going on over in Europe as far as freight costs and air freight specifically. But that was the response. The modules themselves have increased in price only $360 from last year. But it's the freight, the shipping costs that went through the roof.
And we can't
I
find
can
it
tell you
out.
that's standard on the freight right now. We get shipments from Holland every week, and it's up 30%.
And we
It's
can't put it on a boat or something like that and find another.
We could. The problem is it takes another 6 weeks, and we want to really try and get these in before the heavy pumping season. That would probably bring them into mid-July.
Can we send some aldermen and maybe use them as carry-on?
These are about 350 pounds a pop, so
Can't
it might be a little
volunteer.
challenge.
Our new snow plows, first, our old equipment seemed to hold up very well through the storms.
It did.
So
It
we're going to
did.
get new equipment, and we got the last workout out of the old equipment, which
Yeah,
saved us
amazingly,
probably some.
as Ken mentioned, the mechanics, everybody did a great job. We were very surprised on how few breakdowns we have had, and those problems that arose, we jumped on right away. So we have been very, very lucky with the equipment.
And we're still just kind of waiting to hear on the new trucks.
They are down in Indiana, waiting in line with many other state and county and municipal vehicles. So I would love to get ours up in front, but we're 3 trucks, and the state has got so many, the Toll Road Authority, we have to wait in line.
Wait in line. That's the end of our report. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Enjoy your birthday. Next item on the agenda is the report of the Transportation Safety Enhancement Committee. Just a few brief comments in that regard. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 28th. Again, I want to thank Karina for the new shelters at the Telegraph Station. Obviously, they're coming to great use here in the last couple of weeks, and the timing was perfect, so thanks again. I'm sure the commuters will thank you as well. And just as Bob knows, one of the things that we want to continue to work on is to see if we can get an Amtrak stop at the Telegraph Station as well. We've been somewhat in a lull here for a while, given the fact that we had a lot of turnover politically with candidates, and both in the federal area and locally. But now that things are settling down, I think we're going to try to push hard on that again and see if we can get some help. I also see that the Metro has appointed a new chairman, so hopefully we can get back on track, no pun intended there, and see if we can get some progress in that regard.
We might want to get a couple more of those shelters out there, because they are filled with people in this really lousy weather. So they are a popular attraction. There was one question, too, when we're getting the flat screens and the hot coffee in them. I said that may be a long wait, but, we might want to look into doing that with a couple more in the future.
Yeah, I think we can put that on our agenda too, to see if there's an opportunity
They're
to.
well liked out there. A lot
They're very
of
well liked.
compliments on it.
And I think it was,
Like for tomorrow morning.
well, you know, now we're talking about cold, but obviously as we get into the spring and we're talking about rain and wind and everything else,
That's what I mean, though.
yeah.
They're well liked.
very much so.
Yeah.
We will put that on our agenda, Karina.
Yes.
You want to make a comment?
Just to add to it, we didn't put more than 2 because this is potentially a temporary solution. What we were looking for, our long-term solution, was maybe an underpass. So staff was thinking, if we can get the underpass, get the funding for the underpass, then we would move those bus shelters throughout the city.
Yeah, but they still have to stand over there.
They do, and I do stand out there as well, so I do huddle with them.
I mean, the point is they're still gonna need something to block the wind and the
Yes.
snow or rain when they're standing there, so I don't see any time that you're gonna wanna take it away unless you're gonna build a whole train station shelter, on that side, and I don't see that coming, so.
Very good point, and I think it all depends on what is in the grant application and what the process is and what a cost could be.
But even if you have the tunnel, they're not gonna be racing over,
Sure.
Okay, we can work on that as well. It's a good suggestion to see if we can get more. Thanks again, Karina. Our next item on the agenda is comments by council members. Any additional comments?
I'd just make one comment. Bob, I was happy to see that we had sent the letter to the governor regarding the synthetic gas plants and asking him to oppose it. I have very little hope that he will listen to us or listen to the Tribune editorial and do anything on that front. I do wonder whether we or other communities or the Northwest Municipal League have looked into the legality of this. I'm not a lawyer, as you all know, but it is a pretty outrageous piece of legislation, given how much it is going to fall on North Shore gas customers. I guess the studies I've read will be that 70% of North Shore gas purchases will come from these plants. Right now, the expected gas costs are right now double what normal natural gas is selling for, and it does not seem to be a fair piece of legislation. So I don't know if that's something that other communities would look at with us and maybe some way to challenge legally. But we should continue to try and do everything we can to stop this in its tracks.
You are correct. The Northwest Municipal Conference is monitoring this. Apparently, there is a group out there that is likely to challenge the legality of the law. I off the top of my head, I can't remember what the group's name was, but we've been asked to participate with this group and a couple of others in fighting it or trying to curtail the financial impact that it's going to have on North Shore customers. So we'll keep monitoring it very closely.
Okay, great.
Any other comments by council members? No. Our next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public to address the city council on non-agenda items. Any individuals? Yes, sir. If you'd come up and please state your name and address.
My name is Walt Nielsen, 546 Timber Lane. I'd like to add my kudos to the Public Works Department. Not only were they sensitive on the angle of the plow, but they were sensitive in the speed of the plow. And I found that their sensitivity under these circumstances to that was most welcome. And I know I speak for a lot of residents in that regard. Talked to the guys in the trucks as they came through, and they were uniformly pleasant and were only too glad to make those adjustments. I have a question which I believe is a matter of general applicability for the city attorney. As a matter of law, is it the responsibility of the appointed members of city boards and committees who are responsible for compliance with the Illinois Open Meetings Act, or is that responsibility legally able to be delegated to city staff employees such that the appointed board members are not responsible for complying with the Open Meetings Act?
The compliance with the Act belongs to the members of the public body. That doesn't make the tasks involved non-delegable The responsibility remains with the members, but the task can certainly be performed by staff, and that's typically how things are done with the city, where we have a staff liaison involved with most of our public bodies.
So is the failure of a staff member to perform their duties, is that an excuse for a board member not to perform the duties that are required by the Open Meetings Act?
Well, I think fortunately that's not ordinarily the case here. I believe that the circumstances will really dictate whether there's been any kind of failure. If a meeting has not been properly called, then that's something that would technically be in violation of the act. And again, it's a public body issue as well as potentially the members.
Well, I'd address this question specifically to the keeping and the approval of minutes of meetings.
And I believe that you may have received correspondence that I sent to the Lake County State's attorneys in connection with this recently. So,
Yes, I did. That's why I'm asking the question. Your answer.
Well, with respect to that particular issue, there's been no non-compliance, so there's not an issue appertaining to your comment.
Well, I'll put my final comments, since this letter came through about midday today and in the midst of some personal computer issues, always. I'll put my comments back to you in writing, because I think this is an important issue, and I intend to pursue it.
Walt, I might just add, though, and this isn't a legal response to your question, but more of a professional or administrative response, is that I think there is a certain expectation by all of our boards and commissions working with city staff. The city staff has been delegated this responsibility, and the city staff will follow through on that responsibility. And so, and that was part of our discussion here earlier this evening, is if we have fallen short of that responsibility, then we at a staff level need to do a better job making sure that we're in full compliance, and the respective boards are also in full compliance with the Open Meetings Act and any Freedom of Information requests as well.
Well, I appreciate the mea culpa from the staff on the issue that I know we're all referring to. But once again, what I wanted to get to is that it is indeed ultimately the board members themselves who are responsible for compliance.
It is the city that's responsible. The board members may be held responsible personally. But, for example, your question had to do with minutes. The failure to approve the minutes is not an individual responsibility of the members of the body. That's of the body itself. In this instance, there was no failure that was contrary to law.
Thank you for your comments. Any other opportunity for the public this evening? No. Our next item on the agenda this evening is the consent agenda. There are 3 items on the consent agenda. I'll just read those 3 items, and then we'll have any questions or comments or entertain a motion for approval. The first being approval of authorized invoices and payrolls. Second being an authorization of treasurer's warrants to meet expenses of February 2011. And the third being approval of the January 18th, 2011 City Council meeting minutes. Any questions or comments?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Woodman.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Schoenhyder.
Aye.
Alderman Looby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
7 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you, Bertie. Our next item on the agenda this evening is ordinances.
Can we send Michael home?
Michael, you can certainly go home. There's birthday cake waiting for you.
You can.
It's a consideration of a report and recommendation from the Zoning Board of Appeals in support of a special use permit incorporating the property at 750 North Sheridan Road into the First Presbyterian Church campus and authorizing church use in accordance with conditions of approval. This is a first reading, and if desired by the City Council, final approval. It will be presented by Kathy Cerniak, Director of Community Development. Kathy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This petition comes to you with a unanimous recommendation from the Zoning Board of Appeals. It is a request from the First Presbyterian Church. The church is located at the corner of Sheridan Road and Deer Path. This is the existing church campus, and this is the property that is the subject of the special use permit that is now requested. Just to give you a little bit more context, again, this is the church property, this is Deer Path. The church, I believe in 2005, acquired this property, 750 North Sheridan Road. It is a single-family residence immediately adjacent to the church property. There is a house right here, a gardener shed, and a garage. The request for a special use permit is to allow incorporation of this property, the 750 property, into the church campus and to allow church use of the property. What is proposed is use of the house as a manse, as a home for the pastor. As part of this proposal, the existing garage and garden shed, which are in fairly deteriorated condition, would be removed, and a new garage would be located here to form the boundary of what would essentially be the pastor's private yard. The remainder of the property would be a churchyard that would be used for small-scale church activities. The Historic Preservation Commission did see this petition and did approve the removal of the garden shed in the garage, and did also approve the construction of the new garage. This petition first was submitted to the zoning board for discussion in the summer. Because of a significant amount of neighborhood concern, the church postponed on 2 occasions the board's consideration of this petition. This then moved forward to the zoning board in November. At that time, the zoning board still heard from a number of the neighbors. Zoning board directed the church representatives and the neighbors to go back, continue to talk. And the zoning board, when they heard this in January, commended both the petitioners and the neighbors, and really noted that the resolution that was brought forward really was a testament to the fact that the process does work when all parties are willing to sit down and work together. You do have an ordinance in your packet. In that ordinance, I believe it's on page 33 of your packet, are the conditions. There are 16 conditions of approval. When this matter was before the zoning board for final consideration in January, all of the neighbors, actually none of the neighbors were there, but they all did indicate their support. And the zoning board noted that the fact that they were comfortable enough to not show up was an indication that an acceptable resolution had been reached. The conditions really do address the issues raised by the neighbor. There was a concern about what types of uses would occur on this site. The condition and the findings both speak to the fact that the intended uses are really small scale and compatible with the surrounding residential development. The conditions provide for landscape buffers, for fencing, require that any exterior lighting be consistent with that allowed by the residential lighting standards. A key issue was whether or not any of the yard would be used for future parking. Although the church wasn't ready to come forward with that, through discussions, they did identify the southeast corner of the property as a potential location for 9 parking spaces. That parking is shown on the site plan, so that it is clear that parking is allowed in that area and that area only. The conditions acknowledge that if re-subdivision occurs, that the intent is that if any variances were granted, that the lot would be reconfigured no smaller than the current lot. And also the conditions provide for a 90-day notice to the neighbors before any future requests for amendments to the special use permit would be submitted to the city. Again, the zoning board commended all parties. Mr. Jim Johnson, Executive Director of the First Presbyterian Church, is in the audience tonight. And he spent a lot of time meeting with the neighbors and hearing ideas and modifying plans. So if you choose to do so tonight, it would be appropriate to grant first reading of the special use permit ordinance and waive first reading and grant final approval. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Kathy, I do have a question. Were there any setback or actually zoning-related issues that needed variances on the project?
Through combination of this property with the existing church property, it becomes a single zoning lot, and therefore the garage does not require a zoning variance, because the lot line in effect disappears.
Goes away. Okay, thank you.
Kathy, just thank you for your efforts in reaching a conclusion that's acceptable and satisfactory to everyone. This was very sensitive, and I just appreciate all the effort you put in it. Thanks.
Kathy, could you go back to the slide that has the black and white silhouette? What is the parcel that seems to be right, like I said, yeah, that little rectangular piece there, it seems to be a separately identified parcel that is, well, what is that?
It is part of the church campus. It was at one time part of this lot and was sold off to the church. There are actually discussions, I think it's fair to say the discussions are ongoing with this neighbor to decide if perhaps this parcel would get reconsolidated with that residential property. But as it stands today, it is part of the church property and has been for quite a while. And I would make one point that as the zoning board looked at this parcel, they recognized that it really is a single-family home, had not been in stable ownership for many years. And they attributed that to the fact that the church grew over time, and essentially this lot has the church driveway immediately on the property line with no buffer. So the zoning board looked very carefully, and you will see that the conditions make sure that that can't happen, that further encroachment into that residential neighborhood is protected through buffers and limitations on use. So this really was a way to protect the neighborhood going forward.
Kathy, I had a question about that driveway. Will that driveway be changed at all?
No driveways will be changed,
Okay.
except the driveway on the 750 property will be shortened.
Okay.
So some pavement will be removed.
But it will not be relocated?
It will not be relocated.
I would just add here, as many of you know, I live at the 487 property on the far west of this island, if you will, and this was a very complex undertaking, both a lot of concerns from the neighbors and obviously a lot of concerns from the church, a lot of outbuildings on these properties, which made it even more complex. And my hat, as Ken says, really goes off to Kathy because, this took almost 9-12 months to work through. People started fairly far apart, and she did a really good job, I think, of bringing the compromise together. And, credit goes to both sides. The neighbors around the church as well as the church in coming together on this, but really coming up with, I think, which is a really good win-win for everyone involved. So Kathy gets a lot of credit, zoning board, as well as both the church and the neighbors in the area.
Yeah, great job, really. I know some of the neighbors, so.
I'd like to make the,
Ornery as they may be.
like to make the
It's
motion
harder
to
than you
waive,
think.
waive first reading.
All in favor? Or a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Woodman.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Schoenhyder.
Aye.
Alderman Looby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
7 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Thank you, Bertie. Our next item on the agenda this evening is a consideration of an ordinance proposing the establishment of the Lake Forest Special Service Area Number 39. This is at the Monticello Circle Sanitary Sewer System. Say that 10 times fast. Presented by Ramesh.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Bob always does this on a purpose. He puts all the engineering stuff at the end so that, you guys are all going to go to sleep or something, but I'm going to try to make it excited. So that's why I got the picture on so that you guys are going to be awake for this lengthy discussion. It won't be lengthy. Just to give some background, the special service area, last year we did the Holland Court where we had the curb and the storm sewer, and part of that Holland Court success prompted city to look more creatively, whenever we are trying to do any kind of a improvement, to look for any areas where we can add any public infrastructure, but also at the same time give the residents an option that if you're interested in doing something, let's try to maximize our dollar in terms of we are doing the street, see if you want to do any improvements. Added with that, we also added in our city fiscal policy that city is willing to annually give a contribution up to $500,000 upfront the cost for this infrastructure. So taking those two into account, Monticello Circle was scheduled to be repaved next year. As we know, just to orient ourselves, the Waukegan, Deer Path is south here, Inverleith, Ashland, Summerfield. So Monticello is on the west side. It's the second cul-de-sac west of Waukegan. There's 5 lots right now sit on Monticello. Out of those 5 lots, 4 of them, here's a close-up, 4 of them are on septic. We do have water main and storm sewer. It's a curb street. This home has hooked up to a sanitary sewer, which is on Ashland Drive. Again, as part of our discussion, when we found out that the Monticello will be repaved next year, we approached the homeowners because there was an interest, I would say maybe a decade ago, regarding installation of public sanitary sewer, but that didn't go far. So we thought that the opportunity has again come for us with us repaving the street to approach the homeowners and see if they are interested in a public sanitary sewer. So we had couple of what we call as a preliminary engineering meetings, just the conceptual to go over the cost and all the 4 homeowners have expressed interest. So that initiated our this special service area process. As part of this special service area process, the first step is again to consider this ordinance establishing the SSA, and then you have a public hearing, and then you establish the SSA. With this legal process taking place, engineering on the back side, we are continuing with our engineering design, getting the bids together so that the time we establish the ordinance, we are ready to bid the project, because this SSA takes 60 to 90 days, the complete process. So what you have in front of you is a consideration ordinance proposing the establishment of Lake Forest Special Service Area 39 for sanitary sewer. And again, the total cost for the 4 residents right now, we have estimated around $30,000, and then we're going to add $5,000 for administrative fee to monitor all this SSA process. And city is going to pick up the cost for the street and the curb, and then all the homeowners, all the 4 homeowners are picking up the cost up to the right of way line. That means we're going to put a sanitary sewer, and then we're going to provide stubs to each of these 4 homeowners for them to hook up later on. So, any questions? And then I know Vic has some corrections on the ordinance. He's got to put his legal sense to it. So he's going to do that. But if I can answer any questions.
Is there a time limit that they have to connect, or did you want to get them on right away or not?
No, because it's we typically try to do that for more of a water main. This is a sanitary. If their septic systems are working, we tell them that.
But they're going to pay $30,000 to get a stub.
Right. No, well, $30,000 is combined for all the 4, but it's their choice. If the septic system works, then we don't force them to connect right away, because the service cost, there is a considerable cost to hook up. And the other thing is, typically we see the sanitary sewer, the septic systems are usually in the backyard, but for in Monticello's case, they're all in the front yard. Here's the septic system for this home, right here, and you can see from the barren land that's where the septic systems are. And these septic systems, what we were told is there's 2 pipes coming from the house, one from each side to the septic tank, and then it goes there. So for them to hook up the sanitary sewer, it's going to be an expense on their side. So it's not a requirement that we have to make them connect right away.
It's a little shorter if they're in the front yard, though, isn't it?
It is. There's no cost, but at least they have that option in future to connect to the sewer.
Do you give them a deal with the same contractor to connect while he's right there?
That's correct. Again, just so typically the projects we're trying to do, Monticello will be like a large contractor, who does a lot of overdig, and most of the work for the sewer service connection is mostly done by a plumber or something. So 2 different contractors, but we are going to give them the option that they can connect. Actually, all the four homeowners have actually contacted few of the local plumbing specialists to try to get an estimate on what their service costs are. And also to maximize the city's cost, we are going to try to combine this Monticello because it's such a small project with another Western Avenue storm sewer. This Western Avenue is north of Alden Lane, so that we can get a better pricing in terms of once we maximize these two
A little
projects.
more digging, right?
But it's localized, Jan, so
Yeah,
it
no, I
helps.
know. The last piece up there, right?
Yeah.
I know from my perspective, I've talked to some of the neighbors, they're very happy that everybody got together on this and are very much looking forward to the improvements. So thank you, Ramesh, for working with them on that.
Make a
Have there
motion.
been any
And
problems?
if I might I'm sorry.
Have there been any problems in this area with sanitary sewer surcharging?
No, one advantage the Monticello residents have is, they are sitting on a kind of a hill.
Yeah.
They are elevated very high, so that was one of the questions was asked by them, and so far we have not received any calls on Ashland Drive being ever been surcharged, so.
Yeah, okay.
Motion
Just for your notice, the 3 changes that will be made are all on page 4 of the ordinance in the package, 51 of the numbered pages. And it's just to set a maximum interest rate, and we're going to just say 9% per annum, or the AAA rated +2, whichever is less. We also need, under the statute, to have a maximum annual tax levy. We're just saying $20,000 as an absolute cap. And then the third thing is that the language per each zoning lot will be stricken. So I would suggest, if the council wishes, to make the motion subject to those amendments, and a vote would be appropriate.
Make a motion to waive first reading subject to the amendments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Woodman.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Schoenhyder.
Aye.
Alderman Looby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye.
7 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Thank you, Bertie. Our next item on the agenda this evening is a consideration of an ordinance amending the city code regarding the impoundment of abandoned watercraft. This is our final reading. I believe this will be presented by the city attorney, Vic Filippini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This was before you at the last meeting for first reading. There were some questions and concerns about the presentation of it. We have done some reformatting of the ordinance. The packet did identify the primary changes that we've made. I think one of the biggest concerns had to do with the initial implementation of this. And you'll see that what we ended up doing was codifying the terms of what we should be using, but creating slightly different provisions for the kickoff of this program for boat impoundment. And that's why you see the provisions in what is Section 3 of the ordinance that actually extends somewhat to a lengthier period, the initial, creating an initial grace period for compliance with these new terms. I did talk to Mary today. She is under the weather, but this has had some reactions from some of the users of the boat facilities, and as I understand, those reactions have been generally positive. There have also been some contacts with some of the delinquent owners, and they said, the sacre bleu, I better take care of this quickly. So I think that the proposal that's before you, I hope, addresses the concerns that were expressed at the last meeting, and otherwise does set in motion a program that can get rid of some of the delinquencies and otherwise have a better utilization of the facility.
Thank you, Vic.
Vic, I had a question on, excuse me, Mayor.
Go ahead.
On page 2, 3A and B. 3A is the definition of a watercraft being deemed abandoned, and subpart B of that says it's not moved, plus is either not properly registered or is apparently deserted. And then subparagraph B defines, I think, and what you intended to do, defines apparently deserted when the owner is 30 days past due on the payment of all applicable permit or storage fees. It seems like B, down below there on the bottom, it uses the test of registration again for determining whether a watercraft is apparently deserted. And therefore, if you go back up to A, it seems like the same registration test exists for both sub little I and sub 2 little I. I wasn't quite sure why you broke that out, because
Well,
it's the same thing.
I would point out in B, the definition of apparently deserted, it also covers storage fees. I suppose it's abundance of caution. If there's any money outstanding, you're going to be subject to being apparently deserted. The registration, you may have bought your registration, but if you did not place the appropriate sticker on the boat, you may be in technical non-compliance. So there is a nuance, and maybe it's a little bit of duplication in having the fees in that Part B, but I didn't want to have any kind of gap in there, and so I thought better safe than sorry.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Alderman Grumhaus.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Lewin.
Aye.
Alderman Morsch.
Aye.
Alderman Schoenhyder.
Aye.
Alderman Looby.
Aye.
Alderman Palmer.
Aye, aye.
7 yeas, no nays, motion carries.
Aye, aye. Just don't take him on a 3-hour tour. All right. Next item on the agenda is new business. Any new business? Or additional items for council discussion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.